This September 12th, SON Estrella Galicia are back in London with their micro festival at Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage. With live music, beer culture, street food and workshops, SON Estrella Galicia is the musical arm of the family-owned independent Estrella Galicia beer brand, which has been creating unforgettable music experiences since 2009. The September the 12th event will be headlined by Coach Party with support from the New Eves, as well as yet-to-be-announced DJ sets and local music selectors. There'll be a clothing repair workshop to customise your repaired clothes, a local food vendor serving 0 kilometre food with veggie and vegan options, a Soundcrafters interactive workshop, and a beer pouring workshop. Alongside the London event, there'll be a series of new micro-festivals in Madrid, A Coruña, Barcelona later in 2024, and Berlin and Granada in 2025, reflecting a truly global approach from SON Estrella Galicia. So if you're in London, September the 12th, swing by Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage for SON Estrella Galicia. Tickets are available now via Dice. As an independent music podcast, 101 Part-Time Jobs highly recommends DistroKid as the best solution to putting out your own music online. You can join 1 million other artists from all across the world putting out their own music on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else across the DSPs where people are listening to your music. My dream as a kid was to run a small little label, and now with DistroKid, getting music out online is the easiest it ever has been, making 100% of your own royalties while paying a small annual fee. And that fee's even smaller as a 101 Part-Time Jobs listener. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get 30% off your first year putting out your own music on DistroKid. Getting your own music out into the world has never been easier. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get the best deal you can.
Vamos aproveitar o intervalo do seu podcast para falar sobre K-pop. Preciso contar uma coisa para vocês.
Que você faz dancinha no TikTok. Ah, isso não vai me surpreender.
Mas o menu exclusivo do Mac com personagens do BT21 vai. Tem o novo Mac Crispy Chicken Cajun, molho Sweet Chili e Cajun e os personagens BT21 para você levar para casa.
Opa, depois do programa eu vou lá no app pedir, porque eu vi que os combos estão com frete grátis, né?
Clica aí no banner e pede agora mesmo. É por tempo limitado. Vai!
Clube Social apresenta o Corre do Xamã. Vendendo amendoim na rua ou rimando na batalha, sua história é feita de vários corres. E para não parar, Clube Social sempre foi seu parceiro. Clique e confira a nova versão da música Dias de Luta, Dias de Glória com Xamã por Clube Social. Clube Social, partiu para não parar.
Hey, all right, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. I'm Giles Bidder, and on this show we hear from bands and artists about how they survive doing what they do, whether that means working by the day so they can play at night or trying to find other ways to make band life sustainable. On today's episode, we hear from VENUS GRRRLS. Just released their excellent new single, Darla. Really like the way this sounds. It's got a bit of a pop sensibility to the production, but there's something raw and murky underneath, and I like a bit of that. I like a bit of darkness. VENUS GRRRLS have this kind of darkness, and saw them live supporting Sprints a few months ago. They completely blew me away. Total shredders. Sounded amazing at Heaven in London. Just total cloak of darkness rock and roll. I dig it. Their new single Darla is out now, and you can catch them on tour through September. Birmingham, Newcastle, Glasgow, Sheffield, Norwich. I like Norwich. Nottingham, London, Bristol and Manchester. You can see VENUS GRRRLS headlining their own shows Get blown away by seeing them then. You can find all those dates and pick up tickets from their socials. And yeah, this band, I back them. I think they're going to do some really things. They're already doing great things. Sorry, I fell into the journalist trap. This band's going to be big. No, this band already is big for me. This band rules. Venus Girls, check out the new single Darla. I sat down with GK and lead guitarist Eliza at Soho Radio to talk about their experiences playing in bands as young women. This is an important conversation. We all know it. It's worth saying. Sometimes it just feels awkward as a guy to be like, let's talk about women's voices. But it's true. It doesn't matter who you are. Let's hear women's voices. We all know that there's so much sexism in the music industry. Let's hear what people have gone through. And I'm thrilled to bring on GK and Eliza onto today's show. This is them on 101 Part-Time Jobs. I hope you dig it. If you do, make sure you subscribe to the show. We put out 2 episodes every week, all with great bands and artists, and we'd love to have you along for it. After the jump, we've got Venus Girls here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. 101 Part-Time Jobs.
I'm from Aberdeenshire.
Okay.
Yeah, a place called Cabrach. Wouldn't expect you to know it.
And that's in the sticks?
Yes, sort of top of the Cairngorms, and you keep going a bit. I was born in Inverness.
Okay. What was growing up there like?
I mean, you know what? It was great as a kid. Lots of fresh air, lots of space.
Yeah.
As a musician, not so bueno. Well, I mean, it's great if you play folk and traditional, which I, of course, don't.
That's a good way to get into music, folk and traditional,
Yeah.
but if you didn't play that...
It's good because you can make lots of noise. I had no neighbours, but there's positives and negatives. There's positives because you can learn guitar without many external influences and sort of be free to dream about how far you'll go because you don't get a chance to understand how things work. But no, there weren't really other people to form bands with or music venues, and you kind of don't know what you don't know.
Your brain could be pretty powerful if there's nothing going on. You have to make your own fun, right?
Yeah, I don't think I would have learned to play, really. If I might have, I don't know. But
having no distractions.
Yeah, when you're just holed up in it, because unless mum gives you a lift, you're not going anywhere. You can't walk in it down or take it out. So yeah, in that sense it was good. And it was quite good also in a sense, as like a female guitar player, I have heard lots of young lasses do unfortunately get discouraged, and I've had lots of funny old comments, but I didn't encounter that till way later, until I was already really secure and like wanting to be a guitar player, because it never occurred to me, knowing no guitar players, that would ever be odd. You know, I was like, I can be Jimmy Page.
You got no one around you.
No one, like, I was like, that can be me.
Yeah.
I can, yeah, so it's funny, like when you actually get in a music scene and it's really not how you think it is. So there are some pros, but cons. I couldn't really start like being a gigging musician until I moved to Newcastle when I was older. So still playing catch up.
Did you have first couple of years playing guitar and thinking, okay, I'm going to have to be hard headed about this if I want to do it?
Yeah, so I grew up in Watford, which is obviously just in Hertfordshire.
No way, I'm from Burco.
Oh, you really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's mad. Yeah, I grew up in Watford, but I have a pretty strict, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not strict. Staunch Irish upbringing and background.
Nice.
My mum moved over from Limerick when she was 18. So I've like spent a large portion of my childhood in Ireland as well. Sadly didn't get the accent, but I got with the grotty watty accent, unfortunately.
The grotty watty?
Grotty watty accent.
I haven't heard that before.
Oh, it's
my
funny,
cousins will be steaming.
Yeah, grotty watty.
Sorry everyone from Watford.
Yeah, sorry, well, it's fine, I'm from there, I can say it. But yeah, like I sort of went to college in Watford, West Herts. And I did like a music course there, and that was like the first proper time I met other musicians. But it was very male. Nothing wrong with that.
No,
but
to be expected. Yeah,
but I hadn't come into contact with a lot of female musicians. The only female musicians there, including myself, were singers. But I got into my first band in college, and I didn't. Do you know what? I didn't even. Because I hadn't had exposure to it, I sort of didn't even consider being in a band with women. it just didn't even cross my mind because I hadn't ever met a female drummer, a female bassist, a female guitar. I'd never, like, in the capacity, in the way I liked, in the music I liked.
It's mad.
I'd never met one. And so I think going to college and being in a band and there being quite a different dynamic with a group of men than there is with a group of women. I sort of got to uni then in Leeds eventually and was like, why am I not in a band with girls? And it sort of annoyed me that I hadn't thought about it until then. And, then I got really into Riot Girl and things like that. So it's sort of like, I mean, even at uni, like there really wasn't that many female musicians. It was very male dominated, like incredibly male dominated.
It's so important to have these like scenes or cultures or like bands of different genres and different sounds to be representative of the people who are listening.
Yeah.
For a long time growing up, I was like, going to gigs, there were just so many dudes and we're all like looking the same thing. And I'm one of them. And I was wearing a black t-shirt, white t-shirt, and I'm like, there's something that's not as exciting as it could be. When I'd go to parties in London and go to like reggae sound systems, which I went to just a few times, not massively into that culture. I'm like, there are people who look all different shapes, sizes, colours, and that's exciting, and to sort of be an open culture, you want to hear from all different kinds of people, including women.
The weird thing for me is I didn't grow up going to gigs. There were no gigs to go to.
Yeah.
I went to some big arena shows, but like my bread and butter, what I listened to was mostly like 70s rock, to be honest, and then metal. So I have a very good friend of mine who sadly no longer plays drums because she was great. But we sort of had a little team we were like the two classic rock dads of the school. But we were
and
like
that's it, classic rock dads.
Girls. Yeah,
that's the way you say it.
Oh, because I was just like, there was no one around to tell us like we weren't the norm. Like I didn't think of myself as not the typical classic rock fan because I was the only one.
I think that in a way though, that's really nice that you weren't, at least, I mean, I'm sure you eventually became aware of that.
Oh yeah. But, oh yes.
But I think it's nice that you had that almost, I guess, it's not ignorance in that you were ignorant.
No, it's a bit of naivety
was,
because then by the time I did get somebody kind of going, name 3 songs then, I was like, well, fuck you. I was pretty secure in who I was and what I liked, and so that, in that sense, that was good. But I remember, embarrassingly now, actively not wanting to be in a girl band. Like I remember, because we'd just gotten into music and I was like obsessed, still am, obsessed with Led Zeppelin. Neve was really into AC/DC. And the only like band of women we saw were like the Runaways. And I like the Runaways fine, but they've never really been my cup of tea. I probably like them more now than I did. And I was like, well, if we're in a girl band, we'll have to play like Joan Jett.
Yeah.
And, and to this day, it doesn't matter what I play, people are like, wow, you sound like Joan Jett. So I think because I was trying to run from that.
Yeah.
I can completely understand that because women weren't given the same platform men were given.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like we had less people to look up to.
Yeah.
Not because they didn't exist, but because they weren't platformed in the same way that men
exactly.
were.
Yeah.
It's sad that when you read about a musician, a woman musician who's and in writing, and like I say, a Guardian article or a Times article, and they'll relate you to kind of almost like the one of 5 big celebrated women.
Yeah. For me, it's like every time it's like, do you know who you remind me of? And I'm like, Hayley Williams, Hayley Williams, and I'm like,
because I'm not like her.
No, but we're just not remotely alike. Yeah. But it's because she is one of the few, I think back in those days, one of the few big alternative female musicians that was coming through. So it's like, it was either her or the other one I used to get, not so much anymore, but the other one I used to get was Florence Welch.
Okay.
Again, nothing like her. But again, because they were women who fronted male bands, it was like, oh, that's who I can categorise you as, therefore I'm going to relate you to.
Yeah. I guess it's helpful in some respects because some people will be big fans of Florence
Absolutely,
Welch.
yeah.
But then
I love Florence and the Machine. I love Paramore, so it's like, it's not, I'm not offended, it's just more, but I'm not actually really like
yeah, because it's frustrating because it's symptomatic that they haven't necessarily just listened with like it was the same thing in my first band. It was very like Hendrix Experience inspired, and I would play like a 9-minute just totally self-indulgent blues guitar song. People would be like, oh my god, you like the Runaways. I'd be like, oh,
am I really though?
What was it? So that in that sense it's a bit frustrating, but there's so many cool bands like Fanny. They were
I love
haven't heard them.
Right, well you should.
Yeah, check out Fanny.
They're incredible.
They were sort of like sort of
70s band.
Yeah, pigeonholed as like the first commercially successful all-female.
Yeah, it's sad because
band.
you don't hear them talked about as much anymore.
No, but I watched. They were in a documentary.
Brilliant
watched.
documentary.
Is it Girls on the Front Line or something? It's called
Okay.
Girls to the Front, Tales of the Rock and Roll Front Line. It's called.
Yeah.
And
Always looking for a rock doc.
and it's really good. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
And I can't remember which member it was, but she basically she left and she runs a music school now, and she trains young girls up to play, and it's
Nice.
what a queen.
101 Part-Time Jobs is the name of this show. There are going to be loads of different jobs that you have as an artist. This is one of them, right? It's like, okay, forging your own path and kind of blocking out those voices, which is, I imagine, harder to do than say.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's everyone, no matter what profession, role that you're in, you're going to have voices that challenge you, that don't agree with you, that object to you even when you're not even talking to them in the first place, so it's I think it's finding it within yourself, I think, to believe in what you're doing and believe in your passion. But that doesn't come without a lot of issues and obstacles and sacrifices, hugely.
When you think about those particular moments of those sacrifices, all those difficult times, I guess internal and external,
absolutely,
what are the ones that come to mind?
I think, speaking personally for myself, it would be sort of looking at the music industry and its infrastructure to help people in the way that typical jobs may be able to do. So, things like sick pay, which is something that's quite prevalent for me, because in 2022 I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, and I obviously completely had to stop everything I was doing in my professional and, just social life completely. And I basically just lived at hospital for about 8 months because I was so vulnerable to infection and things, and obviously was on chemotherapy. And so it's my whole livelihood was just put on pause, and there was just no support from the industry whatsoever in terms of, keeping me afloat financially or anything like that. And I would never expect that, but it's considering, if I was in another job, I may have been entitled to sick pay, or I may have been entitled to other sort of benefits that I will just not get from the music industry, because I think that there's this sort of thing of it's a hobby until it's not a hobby, and it's
you're lucky to do it,
and it's
get 50 quid for that gig that costs you 150 quid to get
to. This is it. And it's we had to more or less completely hit the pause button whilst I was ill, and it's there was just barely any infrastructure there to help bands like ourselves, who were in a position through no fault of their own, and are albeit a very small but a part of the arts movement in the UK. And I think people live and breathe arts every single day, yet there seems to be a general trend of it's not an essential part of culture because it's not a real job. And it's I think it was hard to sort of live as a cancer patient, knowing that there was just nothing I could do for the one thing I wanted to do with my life. There was just absolutely no way I could ever progress within it whilst I was ill.
It must have put such a spotlight on that fact.
Yeah, it was, it's I was very open about my cancer journey. I wanted people to know the realities of it and what it brings, not only personally but from a professional point of view. And even coming down to my ability to sing again and things like that physically, my body completely changed. And it's been a real journey for me to learn to sing again and get myself back to a point where I'm gig fit,
And even talking about it here, that takes strength.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it must, because it's such a huge part of your life.
Yeah.
That being able to talk about it that's awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I'm definitely I'm a talker. I'm very open. I don't hide anything really. I'm very this is what's going on, and I'm a sort of firm believer in that. I mean, not everyone has to be like that. It's just the way I am. And yeah, I think for me, it's the main obstacle that I've recognised is just lack of infrastructure for smaller independent artists, and you know, I get that it's not as simple as just being like there should be infrastructure. I get that it's nowhere near as simple as that, but I guess just speaking in very simple terms, it's, you know, even things like, you know, childcare and child support in the music industry, there's just nothing. And it's like, you know, there's this thing is like, again, you're entitled in another job, you're entitled to maternity leave, you're entitled to things like that. So it's sort of like this thing of like, you know, you have this should be your job if you're contributing to the arts movement in the UK. That I feel like that it needs to be explored to introduce some infrastructure to it, you know. Sounds
like music was always going to be the priority even when you got ill.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And that solidified your priority in playing music, because one of the things I think is a real job is like unlearning the things we learned at school and from society about playing music not being a quote unquote real job, and actually really feeling it like yes it fucking is, and I'm going to prioritize this. It's
something that I think in theory is really lovely to do, in that, you know, it's like, oh well, you know, we were talking about it earlier, like if you work hard enough you can get what you want, but it's nowhere near as black and white, especially for working class musicians.
That's a huge thing for me as well, is like I, you know, again, in my naive little bubble, kind of grew up with a lot of musicians who have, if not the privilege of finance, at least the privilege of location. So people that were born natives to London or LA, going, it's 2020 or whatever it was at the time, or 2024, man, you can do anything if you work hard enough. And the thing is, when you are in a more isolated community, and you don't have a network that will go, that's not how you tune a guitar, you sound shit, be better, which is an important part of the early stages. It's not that simple. A lot of people are blind to some of the leg ups that they did kind of have. And the reason I get so annoyed about it, sounds like such a lovely positive message, like you can achieve anything if you work hard enough, but I just know that there are probably, you know, musicians out there who have, in the industry's eyes, not succeeded, or they've gotten sick of being poor and working every hour of the day, and they decide, actually, I need to go on a holiday, I need to enjoy my life, I need to have a secure house, because it's, you know, a toss up for them, because the goalposts before you start making money off music move further and further and further, and the personal investment you have to make gets more and more and more. And I just think that anybody that takes that and thinks, well, it must be my fault that this didn't work for me, and I just think that that's just not true. No. There are probably so many brilliant musicians who work so hard and are so deserving, but their circumstances, or luck is a huge part of it, haven't worked out for them. And so as much as I want to be like, work hard enough and you can achieve your dreams, also if you don't, it's not your fault. I think that's a huge thing, and it's okay to be burnt out, and you're not a failure if you decide, you know what, it's been 15 years of graft and I'm really tired and I think I'm gonna just
call it a day.
Yeah. You know, I think we need to change the narrative about that a lot, because it's not so.
There's someone out there in Scotland or in Wales or Middle England who's an absolute shredder, who writes amazing songs.
I've met lots of them.
Has the best voice, writes the most amazing lyrics that we'll never hear.
And who don't, you know, just move to London then, but they don't have help for a rental deposit, and they don't have a support network, and it's really hard. And I think unless you're from a rural community or a working class background, well, these days, let's be realistic, even middle class, it's you know, it's
the gap is just
the gap. Exactly.
Even moving to London, like at the prime age of 33, I'm now like doing okay, but I don't feel okay. I still freak out.
Well, probably because you fought tooth and nail to get there, you know. So it's sort of like
and I always wanted to move here. When I was sitting at home, I thought, I'll go to London, and then I was like, that's not feasible.
But Leeds was the place for you.
I live in Newcastle,
so we're part based Leeds, part based Newcastle. Great. So me and Hannah are currently in Leeds, and Eliza and Gabby, and well, Grace is she's not in Newcastle, but she's in the northeast. Hartlepool, so you know, we're sort of Leeds northeast. But I went to Leeds for uni, and so did Hannah.
Do you feel like that plays a role in the band? I mean, being from Watford and moving up there, you must see the sort of cultural difference.
Do you know, like, I had a working class upbringing in Watford. I was, you know, fortunate in being close to London, but, you know, and experiencing London, but obviously not really living in it. But, you know, it's sort of like coming to Leeds for me, I felt freer and better than ever, because Watford, at least when I was a kid, it's sort of, I think, come on a bit now, but when I was a kid, it was just a bit of a town.
It's a high street, isn't it? It's a
yeah,
walkabout.
it's just
You know what? Newcastle felt huge to me.
Yeah.
When I moved there, I was like, it's the bright lights.
See,
lads.
that's exactly what, when I came to Leeds, I was like, even though I had experienced London, I never really got on with London. It was just a bit too much for me. But Leeds, it was like, I don't know, it felt like I came into the north and was like, oh, like this is where I want to be.
You can breathe.
It just felt like it had just sort of an air about it. The north in general, I feel. I don't know.
It's a good quality of life you can have in the north.
Yeah,
I
this
think.
is the thing.
That's the thing I say about Newcastle. It's a good quality of life.
Yeah.
It's affordable.
Yeah.
And
there's enough culture, there's enough bands and musicians.
Yeah.
This is it.
And venues
Yeah.
where you're like, okay, there is other people doing this.
Yeah.
There is a place for us.
And you can drive to anywhere in a day.
This is the thing. It's like, when
You
you're.
can afford the petrol.
I think when you're in the north generally, you've got Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds. You've got all of these, rich music history cities. Right on your doorstep that you can get to within a couple of hours.
So for early gigs.
Absolutely. To be completely honest with you, I had a real Britpop phase when I was a teenager. So my
There's
dream
some good
was
songs in Britpop.
yeah. Some of it, yeah. But I had a real dream to go to Manchester. But like that, when I realised Oasis were not the greatest band in the world, I decided that maybe I shouldn't go to Manchester.
The dream died, did it?
The dream did die, yeah.
I had I'd never been to Newcastle in my life before moving there. I had no reason to go. I just needed to go to uni, needed an extra place on my UCAS form. I was originally going to go further south, but as I said, I just financially I couldn't really
possible.
make it work. And visited Newcastle on the day and was like, oh, it's nice. But it's pretty good for me because it's quite, I like my rock and my metal, and it's good heavy metal city, Newcastle. Amazing metal bands, good scene for that. And it's close to the countryside, and I'm a proper like stone circle nut. So
Get up to Whitley Bay.
there's so many nice places, and I live in Northumberland actually now, just in
The
in
beaches
the
up and
woods.
down there are beautiful.
Yeah,
because they just go on for miles.
They're
and
lovely.
If you saw a photo, you kind of wouldn't know where it was.
I've never been
Totally.
up that way.
Oh no, they're really nice and sandy, and if you just ever need to get in the sea or up a hill.
There is something about in the north, and I know Liverpool is the other side of the coast, but there is music. There is music there. There are people playing in pubs and not getting beaten up for it, or being like heckled for it. I feel like in the south, there's a lot more heckling of people playing music.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever been heckled.
I definitely experienced, like, in my very, very early gigs, it was like, I don't think I've ever quite been heckled, but I think the general attitude, I think, towards female musicians, at least when I was a teenager, so, when I was first playing my early gigs at like 16, so we're talking like 10 years ago now, it was like there'd be this constant tone of surprise.
Oh my god, when you come off and they go,
You're actually
I
really good."
didn't expect that, and you go,
Why not?
So
Yeah.
let's unpack that for
Or
a
it's,
moment.
You were actually good. And it's
Yeah.
like, sorry,
I hate
like,
that.
thank you, but also, like, why would you say that to me? It's sort of really this, like, I had an attitude of what I was going to expect based on microaggressional opinions.
There's
you
a
know,
lot
and
of compliments with sort of an undertone of just derision
yeah.
that you're kind of like,
It's just sort of like, it's sort of sad. It's like, oh,
yeah, you go,
how can I even begin to dissect that? And,
You don't really want to waste your time thinking about that.
No,
Yeah.
and it's like, if you do try to have a conversation, they're like, oh, I was just trying to be nice, and it's
like you came to a rock bill, sir, with rock bands, and you were surprised that I played rock music.
Yeah.
You
Why?
are a shredder. I saw you supporting Sprints at Heaven.
Oh, did you?
It was
you?
great. And I
Oh.
think the trouble is, for support bands, it's hard to get a really good sound, I think, at a lot of gigs, because
Yeah.
it's a sound person who's maybe not
Don't
worked
know
with you
us,
before.
Do you know what? It was great in heaven.
You sounded
It was mint.
amazing.
Thank
You
you.
sounded so good. You were such a ripper.
Cheers.
And you got a great hair swipe.
She got the
Well,
whip.
yes,
Whip.
I went to the hairdresser and showed them a picture of Robert Plant recently, and said, "Give me that," and she went. And I was like, "Just do it." But yes, thank you.
That's
It's
great.
where the power lives, I suppose.
Did you know when you played the first few gigs, you released a string of EPs at this point, you got a new single, Darla, coming out in August. Did you realise after the first couple of singles, first couple of gigs?
Well, I wasn't there, was I? So I'll let you
Well,
take it.
You were a recent addition.
Yeah, Eliza joined. When did you join?
I don't know,
I keep
but it's
forgetting.
flown over because
That's a
I
good
keep
sign.
I
It's
keep
like-
thinking it was like the other day.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's been like over a year, which is insane.
Yeah,
to
I
me.
know.
It's
It's
mad.
like yeah. So when we formed, we all met. It's now called Leeds Conservatoire, but it was at the time. It was Leeds College of Music.
Conservatoire. I don't know, yeah. Toya.
And we all met there. And we sort of we started just playing like local Leeds gigs. And we were very, very Riot Girl back in those days. It was very like that was what I think I was very into at the time. I was really, that sort of still in that teen angst, and I was really angry about, I was
Still there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've just become more purposeful with where I place it. But at that time, it was very much in its raw, just angry state, and I felt like I had a lot to say, and that everyone had to listen to me.
Yeah, good.
So I think Riot Girl for me was like really cathartic, and so that's what prompted me to form Venus Girls. We were just called Venus at the time, but all of our social media handles was Venus Girls, so I don't know why we didn't just call ourselves that to begin with, but anyway. And I think it was like even the attitudes we were experiencing then, at, again, a very male-dominated university, it was very much like, oh, they only get gigs because they look good, or they only get gigs because they're pretty, or they only get... And it's like... I'm fairly sure that stuff's very subjective anyway, but it's sort of like we had to be reduced down to a box that they could categorize us in, so it made themselves feel better about what they perceive to be their failures. And so I think it's sort of like a thing of like just that constant uphill battle of like trying to, at least at that time, trying to convince people that, no, we're getting gigs because, I say we were good. We were good in context at the time. You listen back
Your
now.
first single's good.
Oh, really?
I don't know. What was the first single?
The first single, well, if we go back when, it's Deranged.
Yeah, I've
that was
never
the very
heard
first.
it.
Well, what's the first one that's on
It's bad,
Spotify?
Oh, that's Goth Girl, so that's
Goth
quite
Girl.
old as well.
Sounds,
so,
it's good.
Yeah, see, that was the first time we got like professionally produced. I still love that song.
Yeah.
I love that song.
Yeah, I still
it's
love
great
that song.
to play.
The people who were like pulling you down a peg, was that sort of friends of friends?
Do you know, it was like, no one ever sort of directly came up to us and said it, but we'd hear it from people, and it would be people that we thought were not necessarily our like best friends, but people we hung out with, and people that we spent a lot of time on nights out with, and and again, like it's sort of it's not like it even made me angry. I was just like disappointed and exhausted with it. I was sort of just like, where do I even start with that? You want
a positive fuel being put into the culture.
Well, that's
right?
why I even ended up. So before I was in Venus and before I was in my other band, Crowley, so I'm in another band that's 4 women and a male drummer. Just couldn't find a girl. And before that, I was in a band that was a 3-piece. It was all girls, and that's when
how we met.
Yeah, that's when I first met these guys, like flipping years ago now. And again, I was so resistant to like, because for no particular reason at all, a lot of my musical heroes were bands of blokes, because I listened to old music and there were more of them about, I suppose. And so I was kind of resistant to pigeonholing myself. I didn't want that. And then I just it was my first time trying to get in originals bands. I just moved to a city for the first time, 19 years old, like, right, time to be in bands, finally. And then just met a swathe of dickheads. And there was this one guy, oh my God, in this band I was trying to join, that anything I said, he would kind of question me on it. And I was doing a degree, and I'm a closet classical pianist. I haven't played in years, to be honest.
That's
but
sick.
I used that as my sort of vehicle into uni, because I thought you have to play the piano. Anyway,
they are like, have you got your grade 5 theory?
Exactly, which I didn't.
The thing is, you can't argue with a killer piano player.
Well,
it's like
good, because I'm not one. But I played, classical piano at the time, and so I was doing, a degree at Newcastle Uni, and this guy used to say, like, over message, he'd be like, okay, clever little girl. If you know so much, what key is this song in then? And I'd be like, I can read music, you prick. Like,
sounds like an awful person.
Just,
to hang
oh
out
my
with.
God. And this guy just really did my box in and was like, right, well, I'm not going to work with you. I remember phoning my dad up and being like, Dad, there's all these boys are being mean to me. And I can't. And he was like, well, why don't you just form a girl band then? And I was like, you're right.
I'm going to do that.
I'm going to. And then in doing that, I found that everything you do, no matter what kind of music you're playing, became at least somewhat inherently political in a way that I liked, you know, and it was this extra little something that I found that I wasn't expecting to find, that I didn't go looking for. And I started playing with other women, and, you know, because I struggled to fit in with big groups as well back home, because I was like, you know, I was like one of two music nerds and stuff like that. And all of a sudden it was like, wow, I can have this like group of girl pals, and they just had this.
It's something you don't even consider.
Yeah.
Like, it's like when you do it, you're like, why have
I never done this?
Why have I never? And
it just adds something, and so that's kind of been the route I've been on since. But I definitely fell into it, or was pushed into it.
It's so important, and you don't realise it until you do, that everything you say, everything you do, maybe even what you wear and what you look like,
part of it.
has a message.
It's all part of it. But I will say, because I do want to put this disclaimer in, that I have also had some of the male guitar players in my life who I've met who are still very good friends of mine. I'm lucky to be friends with a lot of guitar players who could just shred the absolute arse off me, like proper like guitar bros. And when I tell you, they are the least toxic, most beautiful like community. Like a lot of because I was a very like aspirational shredder, and whilst I cannot play like Jason Becker, you know, I can play me little box on pentatonic scale well, but other than that,
all reliable.
But I will say that it was when I met those guitarists who were actually like incredible and would have every reason to be like, don't even fucking bother talking to me. They're the people that have actually gone out of their way to platform me and give me ins and give me a chance.
Awesome. Real allies.
Real allies. So actually, like, that side of the guitar community is unreal. The side that's not good is like, you know, people that have a Gibson Les Paul they can't fucking play hanging on the wall.
There are all kinds of people out there. You've got to hope and I guess try if you can to find the people that you fit in most with and that you like, that get along.
And the secure guitar players who are great, like, honestly, it is the best community in the world.
Secure?
Because they've got nothing to prove, do they?
Comfortable in themselves.
Yeah, like people that are just really great players, I tend to find like they're the ones with less ego.
And you think you'd learn from people when you big someone up, when you elevate a friend, you end up learning something. There's a mutually beneficial relationship there.
Totally.
100%.
Yeah, I've never met anyone that's gotten ahead by telling people they suck and being mean. Yeah.
Touring and getting to that point where, like, I guess it takes years of prioritizing, like, practicing over, like,
having friends.
Yes, having friends.
And working on a part-time job.
I haven't been on a holiday in
How long has it been? How long ago do you think that you decided it was like Venus Girls? Okay, this is the priority. How many years has it been at this point?
Well, I think for me, like, the first couple of years were very much like, who knows what's going to happen? Because obviously it was, you know, we were all essentially 5 strangers to begin with, and it was sort of like, can't expect people to commit to something that seemingly has no reward, of course, you know. But I think, you know, we had like a really good sort of first year of just gigging very locally, but it's like, you know, we had a lot of fun, and, you know, it's sort of like, I think for me, the driving force for it has always been, am I enjoying this? You know, because I'm not going to, like, you know, struggle financially if I'm not enjoying myself at the very least, you know. So I think it's like, you know, for me, the way I've always weighed it up has very much been, am I enjoying myself? But then obviously things got very complicated with the pandemic, and that all became very uncertain, and, you know, we didn't know how that was going to affect, you know, the whole world at the time. And, you know, again, our livelihood was very much just shut down. And then by the time we got back to it, I got ill. So it was all like, we've had a real... to be honest with you, it's only in the last year that we have properly started, like, if I'm being completely honest with you, because it's all been very sporadic. Like, we've had real milestones in the earlier parts of our career, but nothing sort of like major in terms of breaking into the industry. And I feel like that's only starting now to happen. So I feel like for me, it's only been, I guess, as I got ill, I sort of had to like ask myself, like, you could die. What do you want to do with your life? Because like, it's make or break. If you get another shot, you need to just make sure that your time is spent doing the things that you love and doing the things that make you feel fulfilled and make you feel happy. And I just had no question. Even when I was ill, I was sort of like, no, but it's this. Like nothing keeps me going as much as music does. And whilst it is complicated and difficult, as Eliza was talking about with, you know, that burnout, if you are working another job alongside it and stuff like that as well, you know, you do have to have those conversations with yourself, like, can I do this? You know, which is not dissimilar to the conversation I had to have with myself when I was ill. It's like, do I want to do this? Can I do this? Will I be able to do this after I've been ill? You know, because I'm now a different person. That going through something like that completely changes you. I'm not the same person I was before I got ill. But for me, yeah, it's I've never questioned that it's not this, and I guess for me, I will keep going until, hopefully, I just always keep going. But if there comes a point where I'm sort of like, this is not sustainable anymore, I know that I'll call it at the right moment. So I think it's like, you know, for me, it's sort of ask, am I happy, and can I keep this afloat? Can I keep myself afloat? And if all of those questions are yes, all of those answers are yes, then I see no reason to stop. You know?
With all the horrible things about being in Britain and becoming a young person today, like really hard to find a job. When you do find a job, you can't even save for the things that our parents would do.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing this for? The upside of that is that if you have a passion, and sometimes it sounds a bit cliche, but say what it is, follow the thing you love, follow the dream, because no one else is going to do it for you. Now's the time to do it.
Yeah, and I've always been self-employed because no one will give me a job, actually. I don't think I'm kind of that. I've always just had to go, right, I'll do it myself. I'm like one of those proper, like, right, what new business can I set up this week? I'm like, so bad. So I like did sound engineering for a while. Could I use a sound desk? Could I fuck? Did that for like a year and a half. Got right at it in the end, but it gave me a sort of bit of an ego crisis, because I was like, I want to be on the stage. It's all very pathetic.
Oh, it's weird, isn't it? Even when I'm in the audience.
I got FOMO too bad. I had to quit. I taught little rich kids the piano for a while. That was all right. Drove around everybody's houses, around all the posh parts. Got to see some great houses, but that was very up and down, because it'd be like, Fluella's sick this week. Dang, I'm not
10
eating.
minutes before your and
then I wouldn't get my dinner. And then I've worked in social media management for the past couple of years, which came out of in lockdown. I went back in with my parents, and this is where I am so privileged and so lucky, because my parents live in the countryside. Lockdown, I was fortunate enough to have just a lot of green space, could make noise, no people there, so that was fine. So I just holed up in my teenage bedroom with my guitar, and it was like quite a good thing in a way, because I really came back to like the things that inspired me to start playing, and I started playing the songs that I first tried to learn again, and they were coming easier than I remembered them doing when I was 15,
Nice.
And so it reinvigorated my playing a little bit, as much as I wish it hadn't have happened. That was a positive, and I ended up just posting videos on Instagram because I was bored, and through that I've ended up getting into that line of work. And I work for a company called Lick Library now, who kind of like the Netflix of guitar lessons, really.
Sick.
And I learnt off like their DVDs when I was like 15, so that's been really cool.
Great.
Because I was like, I always wanted to be one of the Lick Library dudes.
Did you interview for it over Zoom?
Kind of. They kind of reached out to me, and I did sort of bits and bobs, and then chatted to them over Zoom. But it was a bit of a divine intervention thing in a sense, because I'd actually just lost some other work that I had, and I had a couple months where I was like,
what am I gonna do?
It was I was literally like, how am I going to pay my rent? Because that's a scary thing when you do live paycheck to paycheck. I was like, whose sofa can I sleep on? I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then they happened to just reach out at the perfect time. So
doing socials and like you're having a brain that understands what people respond to, that's got to be good for the band.
I mean, well, to be fair, GK handles a lot of our socials, partly because it's what I do as a job, and I'm managing the ones for my other band as well. And so I'm just like, I manage so many Instagram accounts.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about jobs,
Yeah.
that's a job.
Oh, it's just huge. It is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it? Because you are speaking to people who either love your band or are soon to.
The thing is, I think it's like when you can see it working, then it becomes enjoyable because you're like, not because you're getting attention, but because you're like, right, my hard work is paying off. You can see that the hours you have sunk in to making content, to figuring, generating new videos, generating God knows what on TikTok and Instagram and things like that.
It's always nice to get someone liking something.
Yeah,
okay, someone likes that.
I spent 2 hours editing that and it has 100 likes. That's good, So it's sort of like, when you do get some reward back, that's when I feel like I've achieved something. But I feel like what really is hard with social media is not only is it figuring out what people want to see, and choosing how to present your product in a way that makes it appeal to people. Even if the product itself in its raw state is appealing to people, you've got to package it in a very certain way, and it's like throwing shit at a wall until something sticks.
Especially with TikTok.
And I think that's the thing. It's like when you sink hours upon hours into something and then it just doesn't perform well, you're like, I'm getting nowhere.
And this is on top of the music.
Yeah,
the writing and
Look, there's a reason that my actual job that I do, social media management, exists and it's full time. Because it's a full time job.
Yeah.
So it's like you've got to be the full time job being a musician and that and your full-time job to pay for you to do it. It's like, it's
You're
crazy.
seeing a lot of job adverts out there where it's like, we want a videographer, a photographer and social media.
Someone who can do everything.
That's one person.
Yeah.
It's
And
like,
you know what, for me, like, I do love my job because you can be very creative with it. It's very fun. Sometimes you get verbally abused, but that's all right. It's quite the chuckle.
It is, yeah.
It's quite the hoot, actually. I do quite enjoy
Do you respond?
No, only occasionally would I be sarcastic.
The only reason I ever respond to those things is to generate engagement.
Yeah.
That is the only reason I ever choose to do that. There is no other reason that I feel a need to reply.
Sometimes
to
I just think of a good sarcastic zinger and I'm like...
Or you just say, oh, thank you.
Yeah, oh my God, thanks for the love.
And then they'll reply back again, which is, again, another comment.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I meant this. This is what I meant, thinking that you didn't understand. And then you just say, oh, thank you.
Some people don't think you're going to read it.
No. And it's like,
No.
as much as I can see that giving them the sort of dignity of a reply might make them feel like they've achieved what they set out to achieve, the way I try to look at it is that, well, if they're going to take time out of their day to comment on my video to give me some engagement, then I'm going to take 30 seconds out of my day to then further add to that engagement, so it's
You grew up in Watford and you knew how many people hated Gallows.
Yeah.
And they did really well.
Well, yeah.
I loved them. So
I quite liked Gallows.
yeah, I loved them.
quite liked
I still do.
Yeah, so I've not listened to them since the Carters left.
Yeah, the first album's sick.
oh,
Then
yeah.
it becomes a different band.
Yeah. But yeah, I did like Grey Britain.
But yeah, I mean, like, socials can be fun, but honestly, in an ideal world, I'd rather not do them. Also, because I'm terrible for, like, I'm a lead guitar player. I wish I could have mystique. You can't have mystique in 2024, man.
And that's a big part of it. If you think of, I don't know, bad example just off the top of my head, but Buckethead. If Buckethead had an Instagram account, and
he does,
would you? But if he did, or like, I don't know, Wes Borland. Like Wes Borland probably. If I was younger, a big Limp Bizkit fan when I was younger, which I really was a huge Limp Bizkit fan when I was 12 years old.
Commiserations.
It's sad.
I'm still a big Limp Bizkit fan.
Do you know what? I saw them when they were mint.
Yeah, I love to see Limp Bizkit.
I wrote a fan letter to each and every member.
Oh, that's really cute.
And my mum took me to the post box.
Sure.
And thinking back now, we definitely didn't pay for airmail postage. So, hey, thank you so much for being up for this.
No, thanks for having us.
I think it's an important chat, not because I'm doing it, because it should be an awesome chat, an important chat, because lots of people are playing music, and especially now, talking about socials, it pulls that barrier away, it pulls that velvet curtain away from like bands and fans and audiences. we're the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
In so many ways. And I think it's important to hear these stories because I think it makes elevates the whole culture, I think.
Oh, 100%. You know, I think people should see what's going on behind the curtain of the music industry. It's all a very mysterious industry, I think.
I grew
It's
up...
how people get away with shit.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I grew up getting told stories of so-and-so played the town hall in Epsom and then got into £7 million record deal, and you go, hold on, you've missed a few steps. And
I'm sure that's not what happened.
sure that's not what happened. And if you look into any band now, that's still kind of the way the stories, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I think it's... I wish that I had heard more musicians, you know, come on an interview and go, do you know what? I'm tired and I'm skint.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you are, that's okay.
That's okay.
You're doing very well.
You're doing amazing, sweetie.
You're doing amazing, sweetie. Thumbs up, babe.
If you're tired, then you're doing something.
Thumbs up, babe.
Thumbs up, babe. We saw Stevie Nicks. She was such a queen.
Yeah.
She said that someone getting taken away on a stretcher. It was fucking iconic.
Stevie Nicks, you saw someone taken away in a stretcher.
Yeah, she was like, thumbs up, babe. And we're all just like, mint. Thanks, Stephen.
Speaking of being tired and skint, just to end with, what's the most stressful day that you've had in the workplace? What was a memorable bad day at work?
Jesus.
Just give me a minute. All right, I need to figure
I
this
can
out.
think of one from the other day, but I can't tell you about it.
Yeah, there's one I have, but I don't know if I can say it.
Yeah, there's a few where I'm like, nah.
I don't know if I can say it.
Oh my God, I don't know. I mean, it was quite miserable when we were on the Sprints tour and I had like insanely bad flu.
Oh
that
my
was
God,
shit.
Yeah.
The flu, you were down and out.
You
The
were.
flu, man.
She was sick as a dog.
It was a dark personal moment
and we were
for me.
all like trying to like isolate from her. Because if we all got it, then we'd have been fucked for the rest of the tour. So we would literally, you would just like hold up in a room and we would just like, we'd like have a mask on and we'd poke our head and be like, are you okay?
And I actually had to miss a day, but we did Brighton. I felt like shit.
Yeah.
I felt like shit. I was playing a solo like, and I
or the Divine video. That was a very.
Oh my God! I thought of the one. Right, I'm a very sickly gal. I just get a lot of sniffles. Okay.
Victorian child.
I am like, I'm always in bed with the vapors. I'm like a sickly little Victorian
Scarlet
child.
fever.
It is. It's like, oh, she's got, you know, TB again. I always have plague.
Yeah.
And we did a music video on what I can only describe as an industrial hellscape in Hartlepool, which is that beach there.
I've seen it.
Right.
Cool video.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's right next to like a plastics factory. The smell is just, it smells massive.
Interesting.
It smells so large. It's just not even. And anyway, I was not well. It's not a well gal. And it was freezing.
It was like -2, wasn't it?
It was so cold.
We were freezing on that beach.
-2. I was in fishnet tights and I vomited in between every single take. And I wanted to fucking die.
There's a shot where we're all running.
And I'm not even in the bastard shot. And I still had to run.
She ran. We got to the end and she just went,
they were all like, where's Eliza gone? And they looked back and I was like 100 metres away. Like, whoa. And then we got into this freezing cold church and I was just there on the sofa like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it.
She'd like get off the stage, they were taking a run to the toilet.
Well, I had to one take my performance shot because I was like, I have one in me and then I'm going to pass away. I don't think you understand. And then I went home and I didn't get out of bed for 3 days. And it was just, that was one of those moments where you're just like, this is hell.
She was literally like shivering on the couch.
Died.
Like sweating.
Gone to hell. And I was, oh my God. Brilliant. I was like, if I was the Rolling Stones, I'd have 4 drips in my arm. You know, they'd medicate me up to the eyeballs, I wouldn't feel a thing.
It adds to the video because it's dark and it's quite cold. The video.
So it was a dark, I can't actually watch it without feeling nauseous. Yeah, that was good. Shit.
Lovely. Hey, thanks so much for this. These are good
stories. On
that note. So that was GK and Eliza from Venus Girls. Here on 101 Part-Time Jobs, their new single, Darla, is awesome. Really recommend you go listen to that. Love that story. Love what they have to say. So cheers for being here. It's 101 Part-Time Jobs. If you play in a band or if you're an artist and you're trying to get your album, EP or single out and you don't know how to do it, head to DistroKid. It's super easy. I'll go as far as to say it might even be fun. And if you use our voucher code, you can get 30% off the first year there. distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off your yearly fee, which is already really affordable. And then after that, you're making all your own royalties. You can join 1 million other users around the world using DistroKid and getting their songs out on Spotify and Apple, as well as Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and all the rest of it. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod and find an affordable solution to put our music into the world.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production.
This September 12th, SON Estrella Galicia are back in London with their micro festival at Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage. With live music, beer culture, street food and workshops, SON Estrella Galicia is the musical arm of the family-owned independent Estrella Galicia beer brand, which has been creating unforgettable music experiences since 2009. The September the 12th event will be headlined by Coach Party with support from the New Weaves, as well as yet-to-be-announced DJ sets and local music selectors. There'll be a clothing repair workshop to customise your repaired clothes, a local food vendor serving 0 kilometre food with veggie and vegan options, a Soundcrafters interactive workshop, and a beer pouring workshop. Alongside the London event, there'll be a series of new micro-festivals in Madrid, A Coruña, Barcelona later in 2024, and Berlin and Granada in 2025, reflecting a truly global approach from SON Estrella Galicia. So if you're in London, September the 12th, swing by Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage for SON Estrella Galicia. Tickets are available now via Dice. As an independent music podcast, 101 Part-Time Jobs highly recommends DistroKid as the best solution to putting out your own music online. You can join 1 million other artists from all across the world putting out their own music on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else across the DSPs where people are listening to your music. My dream as a kid was to run a small little label, and now with DistroKid, getting music out online is the easiest it ever has been, making 100% of your own royalties while paying a small annual fee. And that fee's even smaller as a 101 Part-Time Jobs listener. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get 30% off your first year putting out your own music on DistroKid. Getting your own music out into the world has never been easier. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get the best deal you can.